we've done a couple of these race breakdowns, and now we're going to come back with another interview. This is Kevin Dore, who was a teammate of mine, a couple years older than me. Kevin, you're class of 2000, is that correct?
2000, yeah.
Okay,
Yep.
so I believe I was in 8th or 9th grade when Kevin was a senior. So certainly somebody who I looked at on the team as a role model. Someone who, I mean, Kevin will get into his sort of mentality, I think, about approaching running and things, but somebody who I think a lot of the guys on the team had a lot of respect for different reasons in this time period. So excited to catch up with Kevin tonight. So how's everything going, Kevin?
Really well. Thanks for having me. It's been really a blast to see a lot of old friends that I haven't been able to catch with in a while, but to see whether Brian, Nolan, Sean, Dylan, and the rest of the gang. There's just a lot of, it's amazing what comes back so quickly
Right.
from those races and from those relationships. So it's been pretty awesome. And hopefully this is encouraging to the guys as they're facing some pretty unprecedented circumstances in their running careers right now.
For sure. And I mean, I think that's something we'll get into is, I mean, you already touched on the relationships. I mean, that's such a common theme. I make sure that we talk about that a little bit because it seems to really, kind of be a driving factor behind a lot of the memories are the, what you shared with friends and in your case, your brother too, being a member of the team and stuff. So that's pretty cool. Do you want to get into some of those maybe highlights or some of those memories from your high school running career at Saratoga?
Just to kind of set the scene, and I know you've gotten to do this with a lot of the other guys, and I think it really kind of helps set the stage here. So just a real quick context. So I started running late, all things considered. So my first year running was freshman year. Came into a pretty stacked team with Brian Nolans of the world and Amy Schneider, Sean Rourke, among others. So as even Dylan mentioned, we were growing quickly, and there was a lot of goodness there. And then that kind of sprung forward into the following 2 years. So my senior year, we won sectionals, made it to states, got fourth in states, and then did pretty well in feds as well. That was something that I still remember before the season even started. We had a pretty team meeting over at my house, and just to kind of really vocalize and say what we wanted, what we were aiming for, which I really think helped galvanize everybody. Because you remember those runs where you're always pushing each other, and we had a pretty substantial pack of guys that were at any given day could really take it out, and everyone else is just trying to hang on and let's go for it. So there was some pretty clear focus going into the season, which I think helped some things. I mean, there were some pretty tight races. Winning sectionals was definitely a big one for me personally. That was my best race of my life. I got fourth in sectionals, and it was amazing. That was one of the first ones where I finished across the finish line. There was nothing left.
Right.
And it just was, when you find that perfect zone when you've extended the tank and you're done. That was awesome. The other one that kind of really sticks out, just because of the team effort part of it, was oddly enough the Bethlehem dual meet, which is weird. We won that one by like 1 point. It was one of those where like if any single person had swapped spots, we lose the meet. It's probably the only time I ever beat Clark Foley too, which is a separate issue. But
I do remember that actually.
But that was one of those things where from 1 to 7, every single spot was like precisely hit, and every guy did their job. Because we knew going in, this is a talented group of dudes, and if everyone didn't pull their weight, it wasn't going to happen. And we did, and it came down to the absolute wire. It's pretty fun.
So there's two things I want to ask you about. One is something you brought up. The team meeting, I'm interested in that at the beginning of the season. Is that something that you or maybe a couple of the other older seniors on the team decided to create yourself, or is that something that was kind of coming down from the coaching staff, or where did that come from?
I don't believe it was from the coaching staff. I felt like we as a group, I don't recall the exact specifics. It's just been a while, but I feel like at a minimum, we as a group had we knew what we wanted. We had seen what the team we as a group were capable of, and obviously, the competition. I mean, even back then we were aware of the the strength of Section 2 and what was going on. So,
Yeah.
and I feel like we wanted to have a clear goal ahead of time, because you got to be aiming for something. Like, you need to have something that you're really driving towards. Otherwise, you might get there and not even know it. And
Yeah.
I think that helps kind of put some clarity. I mean, it might sound silly, but I think all of us wanted red T-shirts. It's part of
Yeah,
the whole sectional.
right. And for the guys, that means, qualifying for states. You get your Section 2 T-shirt,
Yeah.
which is it's a little bit different now, because you run in your team uniform at states now. You don't
Yeah.
run in the maroon sectional shirts.
Probably more comfortable, but
Yeah, yeah. But there definitely was something to when you got one of those maroon shirts and you could wear it around to other meets, in the remaining part of the school year. It definitely meant something to see somebody in a Section 2 championship shirt.
Yeah, like, that's you've arrived.
Yeah.
And that was one of those little moments.
So
yeah.
The other thing I wanted to ask you about, now this is a memory of mine, which it's always stuck in my head, which I think is really interesting. So you mentioned the Bethlehem dual meet, and just how, like, that stuck in your mind, as even though it was a dual meet, it was something that, the team took really seriously and got up for because of the level of competition in Section 2. So there were several good teams in Section 2 that year that all were capable of winning at sectionals, besides Bethlehem and us. I believe Shaker and Shenendahowa also had really good teams. And so you were a senior, and I think most of the time the top runner when I was in 8th grade. When I joined the team in 7th grade, I think you were most of the time the second runner. But it was, especially for me, not knowing you guys as well, because I was brand new 7th grader and not knowing the sport, it was all about Dylan. Like, Dylan was gonna win the meet, and if I saw Dylan winning the varsity race, things were going the way they were supposed to go. I didn't really know the way things fell in line, but after spending most of the year training with you guys and observing you guys, spending the summer, and there was beginning to be a lot of chatter about the team being good enough to go to states and compete for a state championship. I have this memory in my head of the dual meet against Shen, and I don't know what the state rankings were at the time. I don't know if we were 1, they were 2, we were 3, but I know we were both up there. And we were warming up in the cafeteria before we're going on the bus. So for the guys on the team now, the junior high cafeteria is where the library is, and it's kind of the front main entrance to the school. So that big open space that is our library now was a cafeteria in the junior high. And because Mrs. Kranick taught in the junior high, that was sort of our home base for practice. And we would warm up in that cafeteria space, load up on the bus, and go over to the park. And I remember just watching you, Kevin, warm up, and you were so serious and leading your line of active. But I'm thinking to myself, he's got to be so nervous, because this is such a big race. I've never heard of such a big race. I've never witnessed this. And you know that metaphor, like a duck, and it's like calm, but the legs are going nuts underneath the water?
Yeah.
That, to me, kind of must be what it was like for you, but I just remember the duck part, the top part.
Yeah.
And I was thinking to myself how I'm so nervous, because I got to run against the Shen freshmen, and they must be good if the older guys are good. And
then there's 9,000 of them. So
and there's a million of them and stuff. Yeah. He's got to be just like killing himself about this race. And so it's not like, I don't know what you remember from that specific race, but for me as a young runner, I just was like, that's a memory that stuck in my head about how calm and prepared and focused you seemed going into this race that I thought was like the Olympics.
Yeah, well, and I feel like it felt like it sometimes too, because it's Shen. Like, they are. Yeah. It's a deep talent pool. They're always good. I think the previous year they were nationally ranked. I remember the previous year, whether it was a year before or 2 years before, we just got destroyed. It was like Dylan and then a sea of green, and then us. Is what it felt like, at least. Whether I don't remember exact, but so any way you slice it, we knew that to get to where we wanted to be, Shen had to go down, and they're a rival. Come on, it's like it's one of those big things. Yeah. So it doesn't take much to get focused for that one, and that one everyone knew the gravity of what we were dealing with. and it was our course. It was us. I mean, like
Sure.
it's just time to kind of take it back.
Yeah.
It's amazing. I mean,
And I think it was just for me, that to me was almost an introduction of like sort of the seriousness of it for the team. Like,
mhm,
when you're running seventh and eighth grade and you're kind of like, you run your race and then you go out onto the course and you screw around and you climb the trees and you do this goofy stuff.
yeah,
But at some point, most of the guys that end up wanting to run on the varsity level have some type of turning point where they begin to take it more seriously. And I think for me that was a little bit of a moment where I just remember observing you, and then you throw in some other great senior leaders that were role models for me, like you mentioned Andy, or Sean Rourke, and then Brian and Nolan as juniors. And then even guys like Sean Curran and your brother Chris, who were closer to me in age. So I looked at them a little bit more like peers and friends, and I'm like, these guys got to go run in like the varsity race. This is insane. I can't believe it.
yeah,
Like Sean and I were just screwing around like 20 minutes ago, and now he's got to go do that. Like this is intense.
yeah. It definitely was. It's a whole different league. It's amazing.
Yeah. And then the other thing I remember about your high school career was at the end of it, you were shooting for some time in the mile. And I remember, your goal was to run a certain time to kind of get on the radar of the, either going into Penn State to get accepted or something. But I remember a lot of the guys on the team were all kind of like sort of invested in you bringing your mile time to a certain level in spring
Yeah,
track in order to get to where you wanted to be after.
yeah. So it's a funny story. That's an interesting. I'm glad you brought that up. I, so I knew I'd wanted to go to. I was interested in the Naval Academy, and then I also had been applying for a Penn State art, or excuse me, for a ROTC scholarship. And in talking at the time, just to get for the academy part, I felt like my mile time was decent. I mean, I was in the 4:30s, but it needed like sub 4:20 range. I mean, ballpark. I don't
Yeah.
the specifics. Been a while, but going into that race, that's the other. There are two times in particular where I know that when I finished the course, the tank was gone,
Yeah.
and the state qualifiers for that mile, I ran a 4:23, by far the fastest that I'd ever run, to get to the states. And it was one of those ones where you're fit. I mean, it was a pack for a lot of that race. We finished the last, I'd say, 250 to 300 meters was a dead sprint with some more with about 100 left. Because honestly, I don't think they saw me coming. There was some crazy fast dudes in that race that I don't think I've ever beaten since or at any point in my life. And it just was, everything clicked and it was amazing.
Yeah.
And it ended up where I went. I took the ROTC scholarship, went to Penn State, walked on the team. It was a great experience, which we can talk about later
Yeah.
if you want.
Yeah. I think we're going to get to that in a minute or two,
Sure.
but I remember that,
Yeah.
because I had become pretty invested in the team, and I remember whether it was my dad or bumming a ride on the
Yeah.
bus and just acting almost like a team manager when I was like in eighth grade. I went to all these races, and I remember watching you guys at states and watching you at feds and traveling around to a lot of these things. And I do remember that race, quite a bit. And I think I even went out to the state meet and watched you guys run out there. I'm trying to remember exactly where it was, but
Yeah. I don't
um,
recall.
yeah, but I think I even remember going out to watch you guys run out there because it was such a big deal. It seemed like for everybody that you achieved that goal. And I think
Yeah.
it says a lot about the team and the relationships and the friendships there. But I think it also says a lot about the respect that they had for you. You, I think, kind of were like at a different maturity level. And I mean, I don't know if that was something you'd say about yourself, but I mean, the nickname the guys gave you, ODK,
Yeah. I knew
back
it was going
then,
to come. But here it is.
um, it really was just about you being kind of like almost like an older, version of everybody else, kind of setting the example. But it was a classic nickname.
Yeah.
I mean, it's standing for Old Dirty Kevin, but I won't get into what it was, compared to. But I think the guys will be happy I brought that up.
I'm sure they will. I'm sure I'll hear about it. It's okay.
I think, I think it's got to be interpreted as a compliment because,
Yeah,
you were such a strong leader for everybody. And it was almost like you were dealing with a bunch of knuckleheads a lot of the time, but they all kind of, and I should say, I shouldn't say they, I should say we,
yeah, absolutely.
all kind of understood, the example you were setting, I think, and fell into line when it really counted.
And yeah, and I feel like we tried to balance that too, because like there's a push to be excellent and to do what we were aiming for and stuff. And there are
Yeah.
times where it's just like, okay, uh, there's a fountain over there, let's go running,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
ultimate frisbee in the park over the entire Swansea Park with
Right.
a rope where you're running probably more than you did at practice because it's insane, but you're competing against each other.
Yeah.
Never mind mud runs and the random jaunts through the woods and stuff like.
Yeah.
Um, I think mixing in some real fun into that was helped. I mean, we're a bunch of high school guys. Like
Yeah.
it was a moment to be like, okay, let's go, or just plowing through downtown Saratoga in the middle of racing season with a bunch of sweaty dudes and just being like, this is our town. Excuse me, we're coming through.
I know. I always felt that
Just
way too. I always felt like sort of some sense of like, like squatters' rights or something when it would be like 6 o'clock in the evening on a Wednesday or something in track season, or if you're doing a Sunday long run and you're looping down by the track and all these people are waiting to get in and you come cruising by there. I mean, yeah, that's definitely something I really remember too. And I think the guys on the team now still feel sort of the same way.
yeah,
Just kind of about like a little bit of a sense of ownership when they're cruising through town, especially in the summer when it's a bunch of outside people.
yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
All right. So anything else you wanted to add from, your high school memories, high school experiences before we move on and talk a little bit about college?
Yeah, I think the other thing that's worth mentioning was just as I look back and was just kind of thinking about what that experience, the impact of that experience had on me. I feel like I've learned to appreciate substantially the mental preparation. I mean, for me, that was my first real major leadership opportunity in a role.
Yeah.
But the training that was kind of instilled in us, whether it was for the home course and like where the mental break, like I remember at the time, I felt like I knew where every single route in that course was.
Yeah.
Every trail. I mean, like when you're coming out, you're going into the point six loop and then you come out and it's just like, okay, no one's passing from here on out. Like this
Yeah.
is it. It's personal at this point. I mean, it always has been, but like I'm going and there shall be no one passing me. Let's go. Whether you can do it or not is a separate thing, but like your brain was ready, your body was ready. Now we're just going to see, okay, let's pump the arm and see what happens.
Yeah.
And I just learned to appreciate that. And I personally, like in my family, there's a bigger picture too of just like where this drive and motivation comes from.
Mm-hmm.
So for us, it was also just something that was really instilled with my parents, and something that it was just a bigger picture. Like running's important, we loved it.
Yeah.
It was part of life
Yeah.
that we carried us, and a lot of these, especially this part of it, was really something that is stuck with me even now. I mean, I get all jittery even just thinking about it now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry.
It's something my dad would be on the course stationed strategically because he was running all over creation, as everyone knows, wearing yellow fleece and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And he could just yell out the first line of Psalm 121 is unto the hills, which is where you look for hope for us. Which started, it's like, holy cow. So that was something that was just like in our brains, like, okay, let's go.
Yeah.
This is something that was a bigger picture of life and what was going on and the challenges we were facing and stuff like that. So running all kind of brought that together, which was really fun. It was really life-changing experience as we kind of launched into college and stuff like that. So that's just a little background story behind it.
Oh, I think that's amazing. You're giving me chills talking about it too. I mean, because you and your brother both were great competitors. I spent more time on the team with Chris just because he was a couple years younger. But I mean, Chris was an incredible competitor as well. And you guys had, I would say different personalities, at least when you were younger. But it was kind of a classic older brother, younger brother dichotomy. But that was something really similar between you two. Is you weren't afraid of the work and you weren't afraid of the challenges. And you always leaned into it, which I think speaks a lot to the success of the time, the program over the period of time there. Cause the Dore brothers were a consistent for, 5-6 years there between your two careers, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, pretty
That's
awesome.
a cool thing to be able to share.
I mean, to be able to do that, to go in to a lot of these meets with Chris was just for us was a major connection and really amazing. He is crazy fast.
Chris is very talented. Chris is very talented.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, I would have. I mean, obviously, all you guys that I looked up to, I would have loved to have coached if like the time flipped around. But Chris is high on my list to guys I would love to have coached because I think I could have done a great deal with that talent, and he would have been fun to work with for sure. And I like a challenge too, which I think he would offer at different times. So
yeah, absolutely.
All right, so that's awesome. I'm glad that you had that last little anecdote to share. If you want to transition and talking a little bit about college, I mean, you mentioned already that you made a goal of walking on to Penn State. So you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, we used to do summer running camp at Penn State, so I had known the coaches there and stuff. So I walked on and made the team, which was thrilled with.
Yeah.
Transition 5K to 8K was pretty brutal. I mean, these guys are just so fast. I mean, I think I was like 15 or 17 on the team, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
While trying to do a ROTC scholarship and everything, all that involves in mechanical engineering. So I ended up running for just a cross country season. I got hurt midway through indoor track and kind of realized that running wasn't paying the bills, and that I needed to be able to really devote my time to succeeding as a future naval officer and then trying to survive mechanical engineering and all that stuff too. So I ended up stopping after that. Still ran a little bit. Ended up doing the Chicago Marathon about half of my junior year with a bunch of friends, which is a blast. Yeah. And then it's just been running off and on ever since.
How do you think running has contributed to your, even if it's just like you talked about the mindset and the leadership skills, how has that contributed to, the success you've had, going through ROTC and then serving in the Navy?
So I learned that team was my first real leadership opportunity. Like, it was a really cool place to just to try to lead by example. Even under the tutelage of Dylan, which for really 2 years of that, especially that when I was a junior, he was a senior. He did a really great job of kind of taking me under his wing and smoking me, generally speaking. There was kind of like the Dylan correction where we're just like, if we can get within X amount of seconds from where he finishes, it's a good day.
Right.
Because he's lightning fast. But that was part of it. And then trying to encourage the younger guys as they're coming up. I feel like we had there was a pack of people so you wanted to see everyone succeed. You wanted to be encouraging. You wanted to kind of bring everyone along for the ride. And that's, I kind of saw that as we're going in. That's kind of,
not to interrupt you, but I'm glad you just mentioned that because, I really felt that, once I kind of committed to being like, running is this thing that I'm getting into. I had a previous connection with Nolan, being good friends with, his brother Pat, growing up and living in the neighborhood. But you guys, you did such an amazing job of basically recognizing the fact, and I'm just speaking from a personal, how much it meant to me. Like, okay, like this kid is into it. He's in 8th grade, but you guys, you included me in everything that I wanted to be included in. And it was way back before the days of like, cell phone texting, Facebook, whatever. So I remember I'd be calling up people's houses, and it must have been strange for parents, like with an 8th grader calling up and saying like, hey, can you guys pick me up? Like, are you guys going? Like, but you guys were so inclusive. And I think that had a tremendous trickle down effect on the program and the success.
Absolutely.
And because there was years to come where there was some good success. And then after me, our group, when I was a senior, the guys that were freshmen, sophomore ended up going on and winning a national championship. And I think that vein of a culture really started kind of with Dylan, like you said, you and Dylan and that group all the way through 2006, 2007, 2008 time period, which is cool to think about.
Yeah. it's awesome to see just the legacy that was kind of developed over that period of time. I mean, and let's not forget, it's funny that Dylan mentioned Tony, but which is definitely part of it. The Jay Clements of the world, just the kind of the senior kind of leaders who just recognize what was going on, were accomplished runners in their own right. But for seniors to care and to connect with eighth graders it was important. It was part of the whole spectrum of what was going on.
Yeah.
And frankly, we're spending tons of time together. So it's just like, okay, if you're in, let's go. Great.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. I interrupted you right, I think, when you were about to bring it back to the ROTC and military connection. So I'll let you go for that.
I mean, that leadership thing is kind of interwoven throughout my my collegiate experience and now my career as well. I've just been really blessed to lead a lot of fabulous sailors over the last 10 plus years. So some of those lessons in what works and what doesn't, and had just the right temperament to leading by example, just the calm encouragement, the steady, consistent leadership, the mental toughness even, which I feel like really ground into us at that point, whether that's because of the miles and the push that's happened there, or just the diligent preparation before each race, and kind of analyze, turn in every straightaway and stuff. Those pieces now on a bigger scale kind of helped me as I've just gone on to lead men on sea. Yeah,
that's awesome. I mean, and then how about the relationships? I mean, you talked about that a little bit, but the close bonds that you formed through running, is that something that you felt maybe gave you an advantage in terms of building relationships, either people that were working under you or people you were working with at that stage of your life?
Yeah, I mean, I guess so. Yeah, it was. It really, as I transitioned into, I learned a lot as I was kind of going into college and just seeing. I mean, Penn State's a huge campus, so it was, being part of the team was just a blast. But then also part of the ROTC culture that's there, and everything that was happening with other midshipmen and stuff. There was a lot that's happening there. I also just got involved in a lot of other Christian organizations in terms of just encouragement there. That was really massively formative as I grew up.
Yeah.
Ended up life through that as well. So
that's awesome. Yeah. All right. So how about post-collegiate? I mean, you've touched on it a little bit, but over the course of the last 15 years or so, what have you been doing after Penn State?
I've been in the Navy. I'm an officer in the United States Navy right now. We've had the tremendous blessing of just living all over the country, West Coast, Hawaii, I've done East Coast, and I'm in just outside of Memphis, Tennessee now, and we'll be heading out in the next year or two. So it's been a really cool experience. Gotten to lead a lot of just really impressive men and women at sea, and I'm a surface warfare officer, so I drive and fight ships for a living, as well as operate on the nation's aircraft carriers as well. So it's been a really amazing ride. I also have, in terms of family, I have 4 kids, from 9 years old down to 1. So it's always action-packed at the Dore house, which is wouldn't have it a good way. It's pretty awesome. My wife is the same, so it's been pretty great.
Yeah, well, congratulations on your career and your family, and thank you for your service to the country. And just to maybe wrap up, you've hit on some amazing pieces of advice already, but if a couple parting shots, maybe either in terms of the context we're in right now for the guys trying to train on their own, following online training plans, without the support of teammates and coaches there every day, or maybe a little bigger picture type of advice, whichever direction you want to take it.
Yeah. First, I think it's worth acknowledging the fact that, guys, you're doing something a challenge that, frankly, we've never faced. Like this is your appropriate word is unprecedented. Like this is incredible, and you are being asked to train. If this isn't a test of your own self-drive and how bad you want it, then I don't know what is.
Yeah,
because
true.
is entirely based upon what's driving you and how bad you want next season. Because right now, unfortunately, the season's kind of going away.
Yeah.
So I would just encourage the day to day grinding through and kind of keeping on track. Shane knows what he's talking about, and clearly has your best interest in mind, even with this incredible outreach, which we've all loved. Um, so that's part of it. I would also encourage, like, yeah, running is fabulous, and it's been a substantial part of my life. Um, but it's been a part of it. It's at times it's been really huge, and at times it's taken a backseat to some other major priorities. But the lessons that I've learned through this have really been a major part in my development as a leader, as a husband, and as a naval officer moving forward. So I cannot underestimate just the miles and the friendships and the pushing, the toughness, and just all the great stuff that comes out of this. Even when at the times it probably doesn't really feel that great because you're burnout, you're exhausted, and
Yeah.
just it's hard. But okay, it's worth it though.
Well, Kevin, thank you so much for taking the time. And I think this will be a really valuable resource for the guys. And it was also really great to catch up.
Yeah, absolutely, it was awesome. We just can't say enough. This has been a really cool thing. Hopefully, it's an encouragement. So,
All right. Well, hopefully we can talk soon and stay safe and healthy. And thanks you once again.
hi, thanks.